बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। आज मैं शरफ हासिल करता हूँ तिलावत कलाम पाक का आयतल कुर्सी से इंशाअल्लाह। बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। अल्लाहु ला इलाहा इल्ला हुवल हय्युल क़य्यूम ला ताख़ुज़ुहु सनतुन वला नौम लहू मा फ़िस समावाति व मा फ़िल अर्ज़ मन ज़ल्लज़ी यशफ़उ इंदहु इल्ला बिइज़्निहि यअलमु मा बैना अयदीहिम व मा खल्फ़हुम वला युहीतूना बिशैइन मिन इल्मिहि इल्ला बिमा शाअ वसिअ कुर्सियुहुस समावाति वल अर्ज़ वला युअदु हिफ्ज़ुहुमा व हुवल अलियुल अज़ीम। ला इक्राहा फिद्दीन क़द तबय्यना रुश्द मिनल गय फमन यकफुर बित्तागूत व युमिन बिल्लाहि फ़क़द इस्तमसका बिल-उर्वतिल वुस्क़ा ला इंफ़िसाम लहा वल्लाहु समीउल अलीम। अल्लाहु वलियुल्लज़ीना आमनू युख़रिजुहुम मिनन ज़ुलुमाति इलन नूर वल्लज़ीना कफ़रू औलियाउहुम तागूत युख़रिजूनहुम मिनन नूरि इलज़ ज़ुलुमात उलाइका अस्हाबुन नार हुम फ़ीहा ख़ालिदून। Allah, there is no God but Him, the living, the eternal. Neither slumber nor sleep overtakes him. He is what is in the heavens and what is in the earth. Who can intercede with him except by his permission? He knows what is before them and what lies behind them. And they can grasp only that part of his knowledge which he will. His throne embraces the heavens and the earth, and it tires him not to uphold them both. He is the high, the tremendous. There is no compulsion in religion. True guidance is distinct from error. But whoever disbelieves in Taghut and believes in Allah has grasped the strong handhold that will never break. And Allah is all-knowing, all-hearing and all-knowing.
Jazakallah, Jazakallah.
Last portion of that one. Allah is the protecting friend of those who believe. He brings them out of the darkness into light. As for those who disbelieve, their supporters will be Taghut, who brings them out of light into darkness. Such are the rightful dwellers of the fire. They will abide there forever. Sadaqallahul Aliyyul Azim. Salam.
Jazakallah. Jazakallah. कमर भाई, अल्लाह ब्लेस यू एंड आपके तौफीक़ात में और इजाफा करे, आपके और आपके फैमिली वालों के और जो भी सुनने वाले हैं सबके लिए वी प्रे फॉर देम। एंड वी स्टार्ट दिस सेशन टुडे विद सूरह फातिहा फॉर माय कज़न एंड Ali Mazhar Rizvi, and Fatiha for him and his all the participants, marhumin. We start Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahmanir-Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in Ihdinas siratal mustaqim siratal ladzina an'amta 'alayhim ghayril maghdubi 'alayhim waladdallin. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Qul huwallahu ahad Allahus samad lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Qul huwallahu ahad Allahus samad lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Think of your parents, what they did to you, and all the marhumins, all the good things they have left in this world, and we think of them. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Maulana Dr. Shaeba Rizvi Saab, please start the session on such a nice day on Sunday. You enlighten us, please.
Assalamu alaikum, Jazakallah Mustafa Saab. Assalamu alaikum to everybody. Okay, just trying to share the screen. I think it's being shared now. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغه مدحته القائلون وليحسن نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون الذي لا يدركه بعد الهمم ولا يناله غوص الفتن الذي ليس لصفته حد محدود ولا نعت موجود ولا وقت معدود ولا أجل ممدود فطر الخلائق بقدرته ونشر الرياح برحمته ووطد بالصخور ميادان أرضه أول الدين معرفته ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خير المبشرين والمنذرين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين أما بعد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum to everybody, and I bid you thank you for this session, and thank you for organizing it to the organizers, and thank you for those who are listening for tolerating me. I look at the names and I see the people on the Zoom meeting screen, and I see many qualified and very well educated people who are better than me in every single way. So who am I to be discussing these things? But again, I'm grateful. And we have been spending time, I believe it's been about 8 to 9 Sundays already. And I feel that I laugh now when I look back at our initial meetings. I remember when we were discussing how we were going to do this, there was an idea that we would do one sermon in one Sunday. And that, of course, is a laugh now, because we've been on literally the first 12 lines of the sermon for 8 or 9 Sundays. And that was because we wanted to recap, or rather we wanted to get into certain concepts that have to be explained along the way. Of course, many of those concepts we discussed already. And today what I'd like to do is I'd like to just try to some extent, wrap up this topic, which of course can never be wrapped up because it's a lifelong pursuit. But at least my elders who know better than me, but at least for the young ones, we can, lay down some foundation for things they can think about. Because as we know nowadays, religion is indeed something that is disappearing slowly, or it is being changed in ways that will not leave us with the true religion, and therefore to hold on to it is not easy. And it is a miracle of our religion and the effects of the sacrifices of the Masumina, salatu wassalamu alayhi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad, that has actually allowed this religion to stay alive today. It's important to realize what we have, because after every prophet who came, and there was 124,000, the ones that we see in history and read about, we see that the moment they closed their eyes, the religion changed. It literally took a few minutes or seconds as soon, because the plans were there from before, and it was just awaiting for this prophet to go away. Then the other powers would come back in, take over. Those who had greed, those who wanted money and power and wealth and authority. So in that situation, for 14 centuries later, to still have the pure religion, every book that was sent has been modified in some way. To have your Quran still in its true form and verses, that also is quite a miracle. So how do these miracles happen? And we know that it's because we have still a hujjatullah, ajallahu farajahum, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad, who is still amongst us, who is protecting this religion. Now, our main battle nowadays will be against many fronts, and one of them is atheism. And atheism is countered by understanding Tawheed itself. Now, what I'd like to do is I've taken the sentences that lead up to the creation of the universe and put them into this one PowerPoint. It's about 24 slides. So 24 lines, you could say roughly, or 23 lines actually. And so the last 23 lines. And what we'll do is we'll spend a minute or two on each of these so that we can conclude the topic of the actual Ma'rifah of Tawheed in the first few lines, the first part of Nahjul Balagha Sermon 1, so that we can move on to the next part. Now, Awwaluddin Ma'rifatuhu, we've talked about this before. And so we're just moving forward with the translation. The foremost, Awwal means foremost, or it means the first as well, in Deen. And in the first or foremost in Deen is his Ma'rifah. Ma'rifah to who? So who's Ma'rifah? Allah. Allah is who? And his Ma'rifah. What is Deen? And what is Deen now? We see that it is Ma'rifat. Now, interestingly, if we ask the question purpose, because purpose of everything is important. We create things with a purpose. We created machines. And so when man made machines or humans made machines, we made them with a purpose. When you look at the purpose of each machine, you will see that everything we make in factories, in workshops, they all have usually one basic purpose. The problem is, or rather the good thing is, that they don't have free will. So therefore, because we don't make machines with free will, you know, there's a great discussion of artificial intelligence and how artificial intelligence will take over the world. And there's even a fear about it. And I remember there was some article or media, you know, something going viral on social media about how they shut down 2 AI robots. Some company was making artificial intelligence, and they noticed 2 computers started communicating with each other through artificial intelligence and started modifying their programs. And, you know, the entertainment industries of the world tried to show this future in which machines and their intelligence have taken over humanity, and now they are ruling the world. I think that one of the reasons why we even consider that is because we don't recognize free will, and we don't realize that we have free will, and we don't realize that it is a gift from Allah, and it's not something that we can give to something we create. We can make a machine and program it, but we can't give it free will. So if computers did take over the world, it would be because we programmed them to, not because they wanted to. I think we've overestimated ourselves, you know, and by us, I mean the scientists who are working on AI. And if we realize what free will actually is, then we realize that Allah creates. Sure, we create, but when we create a machine that doesn't have free will, and it enacts its purpose. So it has a purpose, and we create it for that purpose. We hardly make anything without purpose. Even some things that might seem very much without purpose, you know, like maybe someone doesn't understand abstract art, and they see a painting or they see a sculpture, and they say, what is this? It looks like nothing. And then the artist will say, no, this is representing this and that and various aspects of life and emotion and artistic creation and potentials and possibilities. So when we are creating art, even that has a purpose. Of course, when we create a tool and something that has utility, then definitely it has more purpose, but it doesn't have free will. Allah created things with purpose and free will. Therefore, it was up to the creation to fulfill its purpose or not. That is a beautiful gift from Allah. He is not a tyrant. He does not force us. So therefore, when he creates us, he gives us the free will to enact the purpose of our own creation or not. It's up to us. If we do, there is great benefit in it. So a machine that we create, for example, a car, it runs, but the car doesn't have free will. It doesn't get reward. It doesn't get benefit. It doesn't get satisfaction. But if you use a machine or any tool created by a human for something bad, then that is the human free will. For example, if the inventor of dynamite created dynamite so that it would help to move mountains out of the way so that we could create roads and go through rough terrain, that is a noble goal, to ease the difficulties of humanity. But what if someone takes that dynamite and uses it to destroy? Well, now that's again human free will that has come into it. So everything we've created can be used for good or evil, for benefit or harm. And in the same way, when Allah created us, if we enact our free will to fulfill that purpose, it becomes good and beneficial. And if we are doing other things, it will end up harming us. So every human, therefore, it is mandatory upon us to know what is the purpose of our creation. And unfortunately, when we look at the world, we see that the ones who are not going deeper into the reason why they're here, they are living a very superficial existence, mainly about senses. We live in the sensory world. So we want to please the five senses, and we seek to feel happiness and pleasure and, all of these things that are very manifest and obvious, but we don't go deeper into our purpose. We have to realize the purpose was not to taste good food, to enjoy things that sound good and look good and feel good. What feels good, for example, is the common motto of today. Do what you like, do what you enjoy, do what feels good. But all of that is sensory. So it's not true satisfaction, because sensory satisfaction is temporary and true satisfaction is permanent. And the purpose of our creation is for permanence. So therefore, when we want to understand the purpose, the first thing we have to do is ask him. We have to ask him, what is the purpose? Now, I've given three purposes here, you could say, on this slide. If you look at the first one, it says, no reason except for worship. So this is the purpose of creation. We get this from the Surah 51, verse 56. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ, and not were created jinn or ins, illa, except for, liya'budun, except that they should worship me. And so we see the word worship come up here. So the purpose of creation is to worship Allah. But the question is, does Allah need to be worshipped? Because sometimes what we do is, I've seen another atheistic argument that says, what does Allah need worship for? Why does he... Na'uzu billah, I was listening to an atheist who even, ridiculed and said that, is he insecure? Like a human that is insecure, they want constant reminders, and they need to be reaffirmed that, look, you are right, you're on the right path, what you're doing is good, don't worry about it. You try to boost up their confidence. Or maybe someone has an ego or pride, and so when they are praised, they feel good. So does Allah feel good when we praise him, for example? Or, does he feel insecure? Na'uzubillah. So of course, these things are completely untrue. So therefore, we must understand the purpose of creation was not for any insecurity or for any fulfillment of ego or pride. The purpose of worship was simply for our own benefit. So this means that there is only benefit for us in worship. There is no benefit for him. But that is only understood when we start to understand him. The other purpose of creation we see is, hadith is mentioned in Hadith Qissa, in which it is said, "Inni ma khalaqtu samaa mabniyatan." Here it says, "Wa ma khalaqtul jinna wal insa," and here it's talking about jinn and ins. But there he talks about all of the existing universe and the skies and the heavens and the earth and the stars and the sun and the moon, illa fi muhabbati, except for muhabbat. Of whom? The five khamsatul ladina tahtal kisa. So what we see is that in Hadith Qissa, the purpose of creation is muhabbat, love. And we see in the Quran here in this verse, the purpose of creation of jinn and ins is worship. And then we see that Amir al-Mu'mineen Mawlai Kainat alayhi salam says, Awwalu dini ma'arifatuhu. So then again, another purpose of creation is for ma'rifah. So when we look at these three, we are created. Now, I, as a human being, have a purpose, you know. So a car has a purpose, it takes people places. A watch has a purpose, it gives time. So as a human being, we have purpose as well. Now, we do a lot of things. We sleep, we eat, we talk to each other, we go to work, we relax, we help each other. There's many activities that we do in the day, from going grocery shopping to cooking to eating to doing homework to watching television. Anything that you do in the day is a secondary purpose. So the primary purpose needs to be understood. That means when someone goes to, for example, to earn money, their primary purpose is to leave their home to earn wages. Now, everything they do will be secondary to fulfill that primary purpose. So we go to our work, we might go to an office, we might do a lot of things there. Every activity done in the office is a secondary purpose. The primary purpose is we want to earn wages so that we can eat. So that means the primary purpose there becomes to survive. So the primary purpose is survival. Now, is our primary purpose survival, or is that a secondary purpose? So what we need to do is we need to realize that many people who do not fulfill their primary purpose will be living in a secondary purpose. For most humans around us, we will see survival is what it's all about. We just want to survive. We want to have a roof over our head, food in our stomach, clothes on our back. We want to have the comforts of life. So these survival purposes are not the primary one, though. If we are doing everything for survival, well then, we should not expect reward from Allah, because our primary purpose is not Him. If we are doing it for Him and we are surviving for Him and everything we do is for Him, then He becomes our primary purpose. So to understand the primary purpose, we have to see that there is worship, there is love, and there is ma'rifah. Now, ma'rifah can be explained, because love itself is a term that's used in many ways, right? And a ma'rifah is translated as recognition, but it's not really recognition. I'd prefer to keep ma'rifah in its Arabic term because we don't have a proper English term for it. So ibadat, muhabbat, and we said ma'rifat, these three things. Now, the question is, are these three things the same? Or are they separate? And if He created the world not for anything but worship, not for anything but love, and the whole purpose of all of this is ma'rifah, then do we make all these three things the same thing? But when we look at them, they are different. So then what we ask is, which of these is coming first and which is coming second and which is coming third? Are they a cause and effect of each other? And I think that we can do that. When we look and we see Awwaluddin is ma'rifah, therefore we learn that ma'rifat is the first step. So this can be the primary or the first cause of these three. That means ma'rifat is necessary, which will lead to something else. As we gain ma'rifah of Him, it will increase our hub of Him. That means that we will increase our love for Allah, our muhabbat for Allah, which will be based on ma'rifat. Therefore, hub doesn't come until we have ma'rifat. And if we have hub without ma'rifat, then it is not hub of Allah. Indirectly, it becomes hub of myself. So you see, many people are indulging in self-love and they think they are loving Allah, but they are not. And this is the problem with many we see who are propagating their religion. They will try to propagate their religion without understanding of Allah. And instead they will love themselves, and we won't realize it. But that's what happens in self-love. It blinds us. So now what we say is ma'rifat leads to hub. And you'll see many people, they talk about the religion, they propagate the religion, but they have many of their own self-made concepts. In many ways, we can create our own Allah in our mind and fall in love with that. It's our own creation. And then we can propagate that. But without ma'rifah, hub is not going to be true. So ma'rifah leads to hub, and then hub will lead to worship. That means that we will worship Him because of that love. Worshipping Allah out of hub is very different. When Amir al-Mu'mineen Mawlai Qainat alayhi salam was asked, about the levels of worshipers, and he said that, of course, as all of you know, he said that there is the worship that is done out of fear, that is the worship of the slave. There is the worship that is done out of greed for Jannah, and that is the worship of the merchant. Then there is the worship of the one who does it for the sake, because Allah is worth worshiping. That means that the true value of Allah has been realized. The one who is worshiping Allah out of fear, he is not valuing Allah, he is valuing himself. I want to save myself from Allah's wrath. Therefore, as I value myself, I want to protect myself. Therefore, I'm worshiping Allah. So the value is placed on the self. And then we see the one who is worshiping Allah for the sake of Jannah and the reward. Now the value is placed on the reward and Jannah. And then we see the third category, which is the muwahid, which is the mu'min, which is the believer, the one who is free, the one free man or free human who worships Allah because Allah is worthy. That means we've placed value upon Allah now. We cannot place value upon him until we know him. So knowing him will lead to loving him, and loving him will lead to worshiping him. Then you will, that's why Amir al-Mu'mineen said that, you know, if you put your head in sajda and you knew how much mercy Allah is showering upon you at that time, you would never lift your head again. So it is a matter of being aware of his love, aware of his of what he is. That's why ma'rifah becomes so essential. The problem is that ma'rifat itself is an action that starts with myself. That means I have to want it. Now it comes from tawfiq of ilahi. So that means ma'rifat is coming from tawfiq. So therefore we have tawfiq leading to ma'rifat, ma'rifat leading to hub, hub leading to ibadat. But how do we get the tawfiq? Because tawfiq will lead to ma'rifat. So tawfiq comes from iman. That means we have to have iman. This is where free will comes in. So we have to believe in Allah. Therefore, if I believe in Allah and I have iman, he will give me tawfiq, which will give me ma'rifat, which will give me hub, which will lead me to ibadat. So the first step is to believe in him. And that is something internal. That is something that only the person knows. So I know how much I believe in Allah, and another person knows how much they believe, and I cannot see your belief, nor can you see mine. But the effects of it will be there. So the effects of belief are tawfiq, and the effect of that is hub, ma'rifat, and then hub, and then ibadat. So we will see those things. So if we feel that we are worshiping Allah because we pray salah, but we are being forced, we are forcing ourselves to pray salah, then that means that we are not at that level yet. If we are praying salah because we feel the love, then we are at that level. Love is also something that is internal, that is felt, but it can also manifest. And that means when something loves something else, then we can see it in them. It is shown in their actions even. So then the question is, how do we gain ma'rifah? So that's what the rest of this is about. And moving along a little faster because time is flying by, but let's talk about then the steps of ma'rifah. And I'm hoping the last 8 Sundays and the things we talked about will hopefully make all of this very easy. وَكَمَالُ مَعْرِفَتِهِ تَصْدِيقُ بِهِ. So the perfection of ma'rifat, the kamal of ma'rifat, is the tasdeeq, which means to acknowledge, to testify, like our shahada is tasdeeq of him. So therefore we have to do tasdeeq of him. But then we ask the question, how do we do tasdeeq of Allah? And that is again answered here by Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. وَكَمَالُ التَّصْدِيقِ بِهِ تَوْحِيدُهُ. So therefore, the kamal of tasdeeq is when you believe in his oneness. So believing in him and then testifying and saying ashhadu an la ilaha illallah is the beginning. But then this leads to the peak and the next level. And the next level is then to know of his oneness. So understanding his oneness is important. And this is why ma'rifat is necessary. In its simplest sense, ma'rifat is the zuhur in your qalb. So your qalb is the metaphysical heart, and the metaphysical heart is a heart that is able to bring into zuhur that which is ghaib. So therefore, what becomes zahir in our qalb from the ghaib is ma'rifah. And that is something that is internal for everybody. So everybody has their level of ma'rifah, which means that what is zahir is what is in your senses and you can detect. But what is ghaib is undetected. To bring it into zahir, to make it manifest, because Allah is hidden, He is ghaib. To make Him manifest in your heart, that is ma'rifah. It's a simple sentence in itself, but of course it's an entire universe. So therefore, there's many levels of ma'rifah. There have been counted up to 70 levels of iman, and actually of ma'rifah. There's 10 levels of ma'rifah, and each level has 7 steps. So therefore 70 levels of ma'rifat. And not everyone has been given the same ma'rifat. And this is based on Babul Iman and Kufr from Usul al-Kafi, 70 levels. So our Imam tells us, as quoted in Al-Kafi, that there are 70 levels of ma'rifah. Not anyone has been given the same. So therefore, when we talk to somebody else, we have to keep that in mind. That is one of the reasons for many of the fights or the little the controversies that we have amongst our community, where we fight with each other because of our level of ma'rifah being different and not realizing it. So we're arguing about things that don't need to be argued about. So ma'rifah has different stages, and ma'rifah is a separate topic in itself. It's a huge topic, which is why I'll try and stick to the ma'rifah of what we're talking about right now. But when we say ma'rifah, and we say that now we are bringing Allah into some level of understanding in our qalb, then the kamal of that oneness, what is that? Wa kamalu tawhiduhu, the kamal, the peak of believing in Allah's oneness, the next level is ikhlas. And this is hard. This is something where everybody will fail unless they are taking the tawheed from the Ahlul Bayt, from the holiest messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and from his holy progeny. If we take Allah's ikhlas from anywhere else, we will not understand it, because it is very pure. And so when we say ikhlas, suratul ikhlas is surat al-tawheed, qul huwallahu ahad. So that is ikhlas. Ikhlas is to basically regard him as pure. And so how do we regard him as pure? This is the next question. What do we purify him of? And what do we mean by pure? So therefore, if we are including in him things that should not be included, that is the opposite of ikhlas. So the opposite of ikhlas in a way becomes shirk. Shirk is when you mix things with Allah. And ikhlas is when you deny things from Allah. So it's about the denial, it's about the removal. That's what's important. That means that in our heart, as we start to form a concept of Allah, then we start to form many things with him that shouldn't be there. They are like false idols in your qalb. And like the holiest messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam went into the Kaaba, Makkah, the conquest of Makkah, to destroy the idols. We have to destroy the idols in our heart. They have to be destroyed, and they will build up there. It is a natural effect of trying to understand Allah, that we will try to understand him in our own way, and that will begin with false idols. So therefore, they have to be broken. That is why the first step is to break the idols. And that is why when we say La ilaha illallah, we start with La. That La is the breaking of the idols. That La is a denial of everything else. That La is the leading to the ikhlas. So once we say La ilaha, now we have removed everything, and what is left? That is Allah. So it is a matter of removing everything. And what do we remove? That is the question, and that is what we will get into next. Because what do we mean we will remove everything from Allah? Do I really have things in my heart that I am adding on that shouldn't be there? Because one is a very obvious level of shirk, and that is where we worship, a mountain or a star or an animal or something that we've created with our own hands, like a statue, and we worship it. That's a very obvious level of shirk. That's the zahir level. But there is the ghaib level of shirk as well. And the ghaib level of shirk is where we are adding things onto Allah that are not part of him. That means there can be many people who say they are muwahid and they are Muslims and they believe in Allah, but what happens is what they're really doing is they are believing in their own creation. So what do we deny and what are we adding on that is we are saying is present in Allah? وَكَمَالُ إِخْلَاصِ لَهُ. This is the next part now, the kamal of ikhlas. This is where we learn what needs to be denied. وَكَمَالُ إِخْلَاصِ لَهُ نَفْئِ. So naf'i means to negate, to deny, to remove. Nafi sifat. We have to remove the sifat anhu from him. So we're removing nafyu sifati anhu from him. That is a very strange statement. Strange in the sense that it's not something very obvious to me immediately when I hear it. What does this mean? To deny him attributes. Attributes, we have said, are qualities, features, things that are found in everything. For example, we say vinegar is clear and liquid. Now that means that vinegar has attributes that are clear and liquid. Water is also clear and liquid. So the two attributes, being clear and liquid, are how we understand water and vinegar. But there's a difference. Water has no taste. Vinegar is sour. So when we taste water and vinegar, we know the difference from the flavor. Visually, they look the same. So the taste, the visual effect, what we see, these are attributes. These are sifat. Now, if I learn about water, for example, a parent teaches a child about water and the parent says, listen, this is water. Baba, mama, what is water? Water is clear. You can see through it. What is clear? Clear is like this window. Clear is like the air. So now we're looking at attributes of the window, of the air, to compare it to water. They say, okay, I understand what water is. We say, what is liquid? And we say, liquid is like vinegar. Liquid is like milk. Liquid is like oil. And we say, okay, I understand liquid now. From this, we understood water. Now, once we understand water, what if we tell that child, now I want you to remove the attributes from water? You mean it is not liquid? No, remove it. It is not clear? No, remove it. It is not tasteless? No, remove that too. Now, how do I understand water? Now I have no way of understanding water. So you see, it's very difficult for a human being because the way our brain works is every knowledge is gained through its attributes. So we learn about Allah through his attributes. His attributes are his names. He is Rahman. He is Rahim. He is Razik. He is Qahar. He is Jabbar. All of these names that we know these names are referring to his attributes. So therefore, if we say that we have learned about him through his names, which are his attributes, then how can I deny those? Does this mean that I learn he is Rahman, he is merciful, and then I deny it and I say, no, he is not Rahman, he is not merciful? Is that what it really means? We say he is the Razik, we say, no, he is not the Razik. Like, how do we deny the attributes and still hold on to a level of understanding? You see, this is an amazing statement. When we go into its depth, we see that Imam is asking us, alayhi salam, is asking us to learn about him through attributes, but then deny them. So it's not an immediate process, it's a step-by-step process. Okay, but then what do we do once we've denied them? This is the question. And how do we deny the attributes? 99 names of Allah, 10,000 names of Allah. Allah's names are infinite. In fact, he was present when there were no names. So therefore, really, no name actually reaches him. Because if he was present and there was no names, because the names are for us. The names are for us to call him by. If I am the only one in the universe, do I need anybody to call me? If there's nobody to call me, I don't need a name. Do you see that he is above names? Names are for us. And so therefore, when we say that he has names, those names are our way to connect to him, our way to understand him. But at some level, we have to deny. That's why the Imam, the holy Imam in Al-Kafi also, there's another quote, about in the Babi Tawheed, and it is about the Ism and the Zat of Allah. So now we are getting to the Zat of Allah. And the Imam says there are two things to consider. One is his Ism, one is his Zat. What is this Zat is what we need to understand through these verses and this sermon. So what we see is that his Ism is the name. The name refers, the name defines, the name points. That's what a name does. My name or your name, it refers to us. so that if we're talking to someone else, we can say your name and they know who we're talking about. Referral refers to us. It sometimes can define us. So we create objects and we give it a name to define it, to say what it is. Like attributes are defined by these names. So the attribute of mercy is defined or referred to by the name Rahman or Rahim. And then what we see is that it also refers to, defines, and also points to. So you can point to somebody. That means there's a crowd of people and we say, oh, look, Shaeba, and assume then you know who I'm talking about, and now you look in that direction. So pointing brings a direction into it. So referring to, defining, pointing to. You cannot refer to Allah, because referring to Allah would require that to have something in your mind, but Allah cannot come into your mind. You cannot point to him because he doesn't have a direction. You cannot define him because he is above all definitions, because definitions entail words and he is above words. Therefore, he was present when no words were present. So how do we use these words to reach him? So you see, at one point, we ask ourselves, then how do we understand him? And that is very important, and that is success. So I was having a discussion with a group of young people about Tawheed, and then one of them said, wait, so it's impossible for us to understand him? And I said, realizing that is the ibtida of Ma'rifat-e-Tawheed. That means Ma'rifat-e-Tawheed begins with realizing we cannot truly understand him. By truly understand him, what we mean is that we cannot understand him like we understand other things. So we do need to use our brain and our faculty the way we understand other things, but in the end, he will be understood in a different way. So if we begin with the ibtida, with the first step of Ma'rifat-e-Tawheed, it is what? It is very simply, Ma'rifat-e-Tawheed ki ibtida hai ye samajhna कि उसको समझा नहीं जा सकता. This realization is key, because this will lead us to humbleness. This will lead us to now trying to understand, and it will take us above that. So for example, once we realize that कि हम कासिर हैं, we realize that we are not capable, that is where understanding begins. Does that mean we will not go up? That's the first level. So then there are higher levels of understanding, but it begins with realizing that. So then how do we do Nafucifati anhu? This is the question. And why do we do it? So Amir al-Mu'mineen explains why you do it, and you do it simply because وَشَهَادَةِ كُلِّ مَوْصُوفٍ أَنَّهُ غَيْرُ الصِّفَةِ. وَشَهَادَةِ bears witness, kulli, all, the mawsuf. And what is mawsuf? The one who owns the attributes. Like water is the mawsuf of being clear and being liquid. أَنَّهُ غَيْرُ الصِّفَةِ. That indeed it is غير, different from the sifat, which is the attribute. So this means that water is different from being liquid, and liquid is different from being water. And then the opposite is said by Amir al-Mu'mineen, وَشَهَادَةِ كُلِّ صِفَةٍ أَنَّهَا غَيْرُ الْمَوْصُوفِ. And therefore every attribute bears witness it is different from the mawsuf. This is an incredible formula, because this really is the basic formula for understanding the sifat. To realize that if I have an attribute, the attribute is separate from me. This is a very high level of ikhlas now. Now what we have done is we have separated from Allah his attributes. So therefore we realize that his attributes are mercy, he is the creator, he is the sustainer, he is the nourisher, and he is the all-knowing, the all-seeing, the all-hearing, the omnipotent. We realize all these things, but then we have to deny them. So now how do you deny them? You see, I don't know of any way to deny them except for one. There's only one way I have found to deny them, and there's no other way. Because if I say Allah is not merciful, then I'm denying his mercy. But we're being told to deny his mercy, but we don't deny his mercy. So what do? I may be creating confusion here, but that's deliberate. That's because it is a difficult and challenging task until you bring in the Ahlul Bayt. until you bring in the Masumin. Without the Masumin, I see no way to deny him the attributes, because the Masumin on various occasions have said that we are the Nahnu Asma'ullah. We are the names of Allah. Nahnu Sifatullah. We are the attributes of Allah. So you see, they are the ism, they are the attributes. And that is why you will see Amirul Mu'mineen, Mawlay Kainat alayhi salam, for example, his faza'il, his fazilat, and everything that is manifested about him. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam spent much time of his life and his narrations talking about the faza'il of Amirul Mu'mineen. Why? Because understanding him is the understanding of Tawheed. Understanding all of the Masumin is understanding Tawheed, but we use the example of Mawla Amirul Mu'mineen because he is the one who was most manifested for us. That means that one was chosen to be most manifested, and through him we saw. So Amirul Mu'mineen becomes, that's why we take his name the most. That's why his praise is discussed the most, and his attributes and what he did. The reason is Allah had chosen that, not us. Allah chose him to be the one that will be the manifester of all of his attributes. All of them manifested, but to us, we saw it through one. Through Amirul Mu'mineen, we learned that all 14 are the same. Allah could have manifested his attributes and divided them among the 14, if he wished. For example, our Imam is going to manifest the same attributes of Allah that Amirul Mu'mineen did. And Amirul Mu'mineen manifested the same attributes that our other Imams did, and the Holy Prophet did, and his dear daughter did. So the 14 Masumin all. But what if Allah took his attributes and divided them into 14? I don't know if you can divide infinite, but maybe, he took, let's say he didn't take all of them, but 10,000 of them, and divided them among the 14, then you would have 14 Masum, and each would be manifesting certain attributes. What would that do? That would lead us towards the basic concepts of Hinduism. In Hinduism, we see that there are different avatar, and they manifest a certain attribute. So we would say, look, this is the first avatar of Allah, and his name is Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and he manifests these attributes: wealth, health, creation. And then we say Amirul Mu'mineen manifests these attributes: power, might, justice. We would say Bibi Zahra alayhi salam manifests these attributes, love, kindness, nourishment. So if that had happened, we would have created basically the same concepts as we have in Hinduism, but we didn't do that. So you see, by manifesting it through one and showing Amirul Mu'mineen to manifest all of them, and then saying that all 14 can manifest all of them, what we've done is we have prevented that. So that becomes very important. But then the question is, how do we deny his attributes? So denial of his attributes is through the same one who said deny his attributes. That means we have to accept that the Masumin are his attributes. The Imam said there is ism and there is zat. If you worship the ism, the names and the attributes, so we worship, this sifat of Rahman, we worship the ism of Allah, the ism of Rahim, then what we're doing is, Imam says you are doing kufr because you are denying the zat. And he says that if you worship ism and the zat, then you are doing shirk. And if you only worship the zat, then you are mu'min, a muwahid, then you are the true worshipper. So that means that without the masumin, we cannot truly worship Allah. Because the only way I have found to deny Allah's attributes is to say that Allah is merciful. He is Rahman, yes, but his Rahmaniyat is not separate from his Zat. Therefore, it is impossible to understand his Rahmaniyat. But to get an analogy of it, although he has no analogy, to understand an example, although he has no example, is to look at Rahmatul lil Alameen. So therefore, when I look at the holiest messenger, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, I understand the mercy of Allah. I understand the mercy of Allah through the mercy of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. I understand the might of Allah and his creative power by looking at the Masumeen. I understand his nourishment and his leadership and his love by looking at that. So when we see the Masumeen, attributes of Allah. So we have to realize the Masumin are the attributes. That means they are, that part is separated now. What attributes Allah has are not something that we will grasp. They are part of His Zat as one. Unchangeable, unwavering, never taken away, never given back, never manifested, always ghab, never coming into zuhur. What comes into zuhur is not Allah. Therefore, we have to realize that the Masumin are the attributes. Once we do that, the ism are the Masumin, the attributes are the Masumin, they are explaining Him. So Him who cannot be explained, Him who cannot come into us in any way, intellectually, imaginatively, abstractly, philosophically, in sensory, in no way He can come into us. He still managed to explain Himself to us through the Masumin. So this is the miracle of Allah, the Masumin. The light that He manifested on the world that was able to take humanity to understand and grasp Allah. And this is incredible because He could not be understood. But when He cannot be understood, what we are doing is He gave us a qalb. And this qalb is able to bring into it the nur of the Masumin. And when the nur of the Masumin is in our qalb and we truly appreciate it, we realize how magnificent it is. And when we realize how powerful and magnificent it is, we may think this is Allah. Like some thought Imam Ali alayhi salam was Allah. So when we start thinking that is Allah, that is when we say La ilaha illallah. So saying La ilaha illallah is a true statement and is reaching its peak. The peak of La ilaha illallah, the kamal of La ilaha illallah is in the La, what we deny, because we cannot grasp Him. So what we deny tells us how high we hold Allah in our mind, in our heart, in our qalb. Therefore, when we are looking at the Masumin, which are the highest creation of Allah, and then we say they are not Allah, that is La ilaha illallah in its true sense. That means not saying that looking at a lion and saying this is not Allah, looking at a mountain and saying, looking at a statue, looking at an animal, looking at the sun and stars and saying this. No, no, no. These are just elemental creations made of hydrogen, helium, and carbon. They are not going to be at a high level of understanding. If we deny them, we're still very low to understand the Masumin and then deny Allah. Therefore, the higher the level of the Masumin's understanding in our qalb, the higher the marifat of Allah. So therefore, marifat of Masumin and then understanding them and then saying they are not Allah, that is understanding what Allah truly is in its true essence. So why is He asking us to deny the attributes? Faman, and the one, wasaf Allahu, who attaches attributes to Allah subhanahu, faqad, has only done, qaranahu, has made an image in His likeness. So therefore, now what we've done is we have said that, oh, look, Allah, we are attaching the attributes. So therefore, we are saying there is something called mercy, and Allah is merciful. Mawla Amir al-Mu'mineen, Mawla Kainat is saying, no, do not do that. Because if you do that, then faqad qaranahu, you are making a likeness to Him. You're saying, oh, He is merciful. And now what you are doing is you are making a likeness because other people are merciful as well. And mercy is an attribute. And we cannot attach attributes. Well, why? Because now we've made a similarity. وَمَنْ قَرَنَهُ فَقَدْ ثَنَّاهُ, and the one who makes a likeness, ثَنَّاهُ, has regarded Him as two. And now we have two parts to Him. وَمَنْ ثَنَّاهُ فَقَدْ جَزَّاهُ, and the one who brings two parts to Him has put Him into different quantities. وَمَنْ جَزَّاهُ فَقَدْ جَهِلَهُ, and the one who puts Him into juz, فَقَدْ جَهِلَهُ, has misunderstood Him. This is like jahalat, basically. وَمَنْ جَهِلَهُ فَقَدْ أَشَارَ إِلَيْهِ, and the one who has then jahalat, who has understood Him in two, has pointed to Him. وَمَنْ أَشَارَ إِلَيْهِ فَقَدْ حَدَّهُ. And the one who points to him has limited him. And then we say, وَمَنْ حَدَّهُ فَقَدْ عَدَّهُ. And the one who points to him and limits him has therefore put him into numbers and enumerated him. And the one who says, وَمَنْ قَالَ فَقَدْ وَمَنْ قَالَ فِيمَا. The one who says, in what is he? فِيمَا. In what is he? فَقَدْ ضَمَّنَّهُ. Has put him into a place and contained him. وَمَنْ قَالَ عَلَامَ. And the one who says, upon what is he? Has determined that he is not upon something else. So if we believe Allah will be in Qiyamah on his kursi, then we believe he is on his kursi and therefore he is not outside of his kursi. And therefore we are limiting him. So we cannot, of course, do that. Ka'inun la'an hadatha. Ka'inun, he is existing. He is a being, la'an hadatha, not through any event. An event is limited to time. Time is Allah's creation. Allah is above time and events and creation. Anything that came after him is not him, and it is probably for his creation. So therefore, he was not caused by anything, but he caused everything. So that means, was there a time when Allah did not exist? That's not possible, because when Allah existed, there was no time. So for us to say, was there a time? Time came after him. So therefore, we cannot include him in time and space. This is what, because we are limited to it. We think in terms of sequences of events. That is how we think. When Allah created one particle, he created space for that particle. Before that, there was no space. When we say where, that is in space. When we say when, that is in time. Time and space are both our limitations of our universe. He is above. Therefore, when he created the first particle into existence, it was within time, it was within a space, and then he gave it energy and moved it from point A to point B. The movement of the particle from point A to point B created time, because now that was an event. It went from here to there, and the gap between going from point A to point B is what we call time. So time became something measurable. Allah is immeasurable. Space is measurable. Allah is immeasurable. So therefore, we cannot think of him as being caused by something. When he caused the first thing, he became the cause of all. Before that, there was no such thing as cause. He is the cause. That means nothing caused the cause, because he created cause itself. Before him, there was nothing, because there is no before, because he created time and he created before and after. Mawjudun, he is mawjud, la an adama. He exists, he is mawjud, la an adama. He exists, but he is existing from non-existence. Sorry, I'm just scanning ahead to see how many I have left, and I did not manage to fulfill my purpose, because the time is wrapping up, time flies, and I feel that I still need to discuss these slides a little more. It wouldn't be something we'll discuss in a minute. So what we might have to do is just push this on, because I feel like I'm going fast and just translating and not explaining. So we'll
Jazakallah. Jazakallah, Maulana.
Let's pause over here. I'd like to end with one last minute, because सलाम है उस हुसैन पर जिसने अपना सब कुछ कुर्बान कर दिया।